It was a Friday afternoon when I decided to stay over at my girlfriend's house for the weekend. Her name's Emily, and we've been together for about a year. This was my first time sleeping over at her place, which felt kind of weird but exciting at the same time. Emily lives in Beverly Hills, a nice neighborhood, way different from where I stay. Her house is pretty big, with lots of rooms and a big backyard. When I got there, it was around 5 p.m. Emily welcomed me in, and we spent some time just chilling, watching TV and catching up. Her parents were out of town, which made the whole thing feel even more like an adventure. We ordered some takeout for dinner, and everything was going great. By the time we finished eating, it was getting dark outside. After dinner, we decided to watch a movie. Emily's got this big screen TV in her living room, and we made some popcorn and got cozy on the couch. We picked a horror movie, which I thought was ironic because I was already a bit on edge about staying over for the first time. The movie was pretty good, and I found myself getting really into it. The whole time, though, I couldn't shake this feeling of being watched, like there was someone else in the house with us. Around midnight, we decided to head to bed. Emily's room is on the second floor, and she's got this huge, comfy bed. We climbed in, and I tried to push away the weird feelings I had earlier. I told myself it was just nerves or maybe the scary movie messing with my head. Emily fell asleep pretty quickly, but I had a harder time. I kept hearing these little noises coming from downstairs, but I convinced myself it was just the house settling, or maybe the wind outside. I must have finally fallen asleep because the next thing I knew, I was waking up to a strange sound. It was this soft, scraping noise, like someone was dragging something heavy across the floor. I checked my phone. It was 3 a.m. I lay there for a few minutes, trying to decide if I should wake Emily up or just go check it out myself. Finally, curiosity got the better of me. I slipped out of bed as quietly as I could and headed towards the stairs. As I got closer to the living room, the noise got louder. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt a bit silly for being so scared. I took a deep breath and stepped into the living room, flipping on the light. There was nothing there. I walked around, checking the front door and windows to make sure everything was locked. Satisfied that it was just my imagination, I started to head back upstairs. That's when I saw it, a shadow moving across the backyard. I froze, my mind racing. It was definitely a person, not just an animal or something. They were moving slowly, creeping towards the house. I ducked down, peeking out from behind the curtains. The figure was tall, wearing dark clothes, and seemed to be carrying something. I scrambled back upstairs, my mind in a panic. I shook Emily awake, whispering frantically about what I saw. She was groggy and confused at first, but when she saw how scared I was, she snapped awake. We didn't know what to do. Should we call the police? What if it was just some random person passing by? We decided to stay put and keep quiet. We moved to a corner of the room away from the windows and tried to listen for any more sounds. Minutes felt like hours as we sat there, holding our breaths. We could hear faint noises from downstairs again, like someone was moving around the house. I cursed myself for not checking more thoroughly earlier. Then we heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow, deliberate steps coming closer and closer. Emily grabbed my hand, her eyes wide with fear. We had to hide. There was no way we could face whoever was in the house. We crawled into her closet, closing the door as quietly as we could. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure whoever it was would hear it. The footsteps reached the top of the stairs, and we heard the floorboards creak as the person moved towards Emily's room. We were both shaking, trying to stay as silent as possible. The door to the room opened, and we could hear the intruder moving around, opening drawers and closets. I could see a sliver of light through the crack in the closet door. The shadow of the person moved closer and closer. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't check the closet. The door rattled a bit, but then the person moved away, back into the hallway. We stayed in the closet for what felt like an eternity, not daring to move or make a sound. Eventually, we heard the footsteps retreating down the stairs. We waited, still frozen with fear, until we heard the front door open and close. We stayed in the closet a while longer just to be sure before finally creeping out. I grabbed Emily's phone and called the police, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial the number. When the police arrived, they searched the house and the yard but didn't find anyone. They told us we did the right thing by hiding and staying quiet. They said it was likely a burglar, and we were lucky nothing was taken and no one was hurt. They promised to patrol the area more frequently for the next few days. Emily and I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. We stayed in the living room with all the lights on, jumping at every little sound. By morning, her parents had come back, and we told them everything. They were shaken but grateful we were okay. I still get chills thinking about that night. It was supposed to be a fun weekend, but it turned into the most terrifying experience of my life. I'm just glad we're both safe, but I don't think I'll be staying over at Emily's house again anytime soon. It was a typical Friday night at Stanford University. Me and my two best friends, Mark and Jason, decided to chill out in my dorm room and play some video games. We had a rough week with all the exams and assignments, so we thought we deserved a break. We ordered some takeout, burgers and fries, and grabbed some drinks. We were having so much fun, laughing, and competing in our favorite games. Time flew by, and before we knew it, it was past midnight. "Hey guys, it's pretty late," I said, looking at the clock. "Why don't you crash here tonight? My roommate's out of town, so there's plenty of space." "Sounds good to me," Mark replied, stretching. Jason nodded in agreement. We set up some makeshift beds with blankets and pillows on the floor. I never thought this night would turn into one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. We continued playing for a bit longer until we got tired. Around 1:30 a.m., we finally decided to call it a night. I turned off the lights and we all settled down. The room was quiet except for the occasional car passing by outside. I was just about to drift off to sleep when I heard a soft thump coming from the hallway. At first, I thought it was just someone in another room. The dorm building is usually pretty active even late at night, but then I heard it again, a bit louder this time. I sat up, straining my ears to listen. Mark and Jason were already fast asleep, so I decided to ignore it and lay back down. A few minutes later, I heard the sound again, but this time it was followed by a faint scraping noise, like something heavy being dragged along the floor. I felt a chill run down my spine. I tried to convince myself it was just someone moving furniture or something, but deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. Suddenly, there was a loud bang, like someone had kicked a door open. I sat up again, my heart pounding. I glanced at Mark and Jason, but they were still asleep. I debated whether I should wake them up or not. My curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to check it out myself. I quietly got out of bed and crept towards the door. I opened it just a crack and peered into the hallway. It was dimly lit by the emergency lights, and everything looked normal. I stepped out, closing the door behind me as quietly as I could. The hallway was eerily silent. I walked towards the source of the noise, trying to make as little sound as possible. As I turned the corner, I saw the door to the storage room slightly ajar. This was strange because that door was always kept locked. My pulse quickened as I approached it. I pushed the door open and peeked inside. The room was dark, but I could make out some shapes in the gloom. I fumbled for the light switch and flicked it on. What I saw made my blood run cold. The room was a mess. Shelves were knocked over, boxes were scattered everywhere, and there was a large, dark stain on the floor that looked like it could be blood. My first thought was to run, but then I heard a muffled sound coming from one of the corners. It sounded like someone was crying. I cautiously walked towards the sound, and as I got closer, I saw a figure huddled in the corner, partially hidden behind a pile of boxes. It was a girl, and she looked terrified. Her hands were tied, and she had a piece of cloth tied around her mouth to gag her. I quickly untied her and helped her stand up. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice shaking. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "We need to get out of here," she whispered. "He's still around." I didn't need to be told twice. I led her out of the storage room, and we made our way back to my dorm as quickly and quietly as possible. I woke Mark and Jason, explaining the situation in hushed tones. They were groggy and confused at first, but when they saw the girl and the fear in her eyes, they snapped to attention. "We need to call for help," Jason said, grabbing his phone. He dialed campus security while Mark and I barricaded the door with whatever we could find. The next few minutes felt like hours. We huddled together, listening for any sounds outside. The girl, whose name was Lisa, told us that she had been walking back to her dorm when someone grabbed her from behind and dragged her into the storage room. She had no idea who it was or why they did it. Finally, we heard the sound of footsteps approaching. For a moment, I panicked, thinking it might be the attacker, but then we heard a voice call out, "Campus security, is everyone okay in there?" We quickly unblocked the door and let them in. They took Lisa to safety and started searching the building for the intruder. We were all shaken, but relieved that help had arrived. The next day, we learned that the intruder had been caught trying to leave the campus. It turned out to be a former student who had some sort of breakdown and had been hiding out in the storage room for days. He had attacked Lisa randomly, with no clear motive. The whole experience left us all pretty rattled. We couldn't believe something like that could happen in a place we thought was safe. It was a wake-up call, reminding us that danger can lurk anywhere, even in the most unexpected places. I had to call out for help that night, and I'm glad I did. If I hadn't, who knows what might have happened to Lisa or to us. It was a terrifying experience that I'll never forget, and it made me appreciate the importance of looking out for each other and staying vigilant, even in familiar surroundings.